This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
We're going to open up the Rules and Government Relations Committee meeting for January 29th. It's about 6 p.m. And I would entertain any minutes that might be available.
None tonight.
No minutes tonight.
We should be caught up by next meeting.
Caught up by next meeting. Is that a promise?
As long as we can schedule next meeting, yes.
Okay, very good. There are two, well, let's call to public speak. At this time, we have up to 3 minutes for anyone here to speak about any subject of any concern at all. Please just identify yourself and with your address or precinct.
I'm Deb Friedman. I'm in precinct 2, and I just found out, I understand that the issue of censuring Councilor Jarrett will not be discussed tonight. I was hoping it would be. I'm disappointed that it won't, partly for the reason that letting this drag on, to my mind, drag on is what I'm calling it. It's not really dragging on, but it's keeping it in front of people and taking, and it's a distraction. It's a distraction for you guys to take care of the city business that needs to be taken care of. I mean, obviously this needs to be taken care of too, but it's not quite the same thing as the other types of business that you need, very much need to be on top of. So I am very disappointed for that reason, and I hope it will be, what can I say, if it can't be done tonight, it can't, and just hope it's taken care of and out of the way sooner rather than later, because we just have too much of importance to deal with in this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. With that, we have 2 items on the agenda. That is rules of the council. Just a quick review. We started this some time ago. It was introduced by Councilor Denham, and I believe the council's hope was that we would be able to go through the documents and make whatever changes were appropriate. It's not a regular occurrence that they are reviewed. They're subject, however, to change at any time in the process of normal meetings. We can go ahead and introduce anything to change our rules. So let's say somebody had a change at any point, those can be changed by introducing and then having it be sent to the floor and then sent to the committee for review at that time, as is any additional rules that we might add. So it's not just tweaking what we have, but any new rules are subject to being changed. So that is available to every council at any point in the process. Furthermore, once we do have a rule, it does not necessarily mean that that rule cannot be suspended. The rules can be suspended at any time, given a majority vote of the council. So let's say we're in a full council meeting and there's a rule and we'd like to suspend the rule. We ask for suspension of the rules, have a vote, and go from there. Got all of that? Okay. I would like to dig right in. We had if we could go through the document first, and then I had provided the documents to everybody so that we had the most up-to-date version. The most up-to-date version that we've been working with. There are some other changes that have to do with new rules that have come into play. But the documents that is in front of you should have, and I'll point to Rule 2, the role of the council president. a simple language change, eliminating subcommittees because we do not have subcommittees anymore. They're called committees.
So,
Simple stuff.
question, I guess 2 questions from me. First is for this process, is the idea that we'll go through as a committee and basically like
Highlight the changes.
Discuss
the changes, see if there's anything else. I will ask if there's anything else in
Okay.
the document that folks had some concerns about. At this point, I'd like to address the changes that are on the table and go through those and then discuss any other future changes.
Sure thing.
If we might.
Did you
No,
have a point?
you have the floor.
Okay.
Counselor Denham is a visitor to us.
Got it.
Even though she introduced the item, those are just the way the council works. She would not normally speak during committee meetings. None of us would in going to another committee. However, by the allowing by the chair, someone can. The other thing to keep in mind is if a 5th counselor shows up, then counselor is speaking to a subject other than the committee is not on the table.
Yeah.
Because we would then have a quorum of the council at a subcommittee meeting, and that, some people have said according to the attorneys that we've spoken to, they've said this is a violation of open meeting law if you do so. However, I have my personal opinions about that and will share them with folks. I think it does not make it easy oftentimes for counselors to be able to come and participate in the process. That would be the subject of a whole new law, a whole new interpretation. But in the meantime, we follow what we best believe to be the law.
That
Next
sounds
question.
perfectly great. So my comment rather for this first proposed edit is I think it's a bit redundant by only eliminating sub.
You need to take out and subcommittees.
Yes,
Right.
that's what I would propose
Subcommittees.
as an additional edit, just because.
Yep.
Yeah.
Comma, attend all meetings, council committees.
You take out the word
Council
and,
committees, drop the word entirely.
drop the word and the word subcommittee,
Yeah,
so
that would be appropriate.
that's the thing I picked up too.
Good, we have grammarians here, good. On the next page, Rule 4A, we have some changes regarding, how would we describe it?
Pronouns.
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 Yep.
Can I just provide some context? Is that okay?
Some context?
Yeah.
I have no problems with that.
Okay, yeah. So I just
Very
wanted.
informal tonight.
Yeah. I just wanted to provide context, all of these. So I went to our city, the clerk and the councilor clerk. She came to me when I proposed this. She said, "This is great. This needs to be done." And many of these changes in here that we're seeing today are process oriented, and they're the ones that she has identified as being, this is not in line with what the council does. Those things have changed procedurally over time because of more work or whatever. And so I just want you to know that many of these particular changes that you're seeing in the document here are related to the council clerk's kind of observation of how the rules have changed. So I just want to provide that.
Yeah.
I don't want to take credit for that.
That is very true, yes, thank you very much for your,
Yeah.
not wanting to take credit.
I'm happy to add another just to augment that comment. So I met with the clerk this past Monday
Yeah.
for general questions as a new counselor, and she echoed the same sentiments to me as well with regards to the rules. So I think it makes total sense.
Any other questions? All right. Changing from her to their being duly. Probably the meatiest change of here is regarding meeting definitions. And we once held one meeting in June, July, and August, run regularly scheduled meeting. The last several years, we've been there's been 2 or 3 meetings every June. So the thought here was to just go ahead and schedule it and put it on the agenda. so that everyone knew that this was a plan. So that we would, so that's the change that you next see. And the items will be delivered to the clerk of the council as opposed to city clerk, who happen to be one and the same at this point, but not always. It doesn't have to be. The meeting day would be rescheduled, maybe rescheduled when the council sets the meeting date in accordance with Rule 5. Questions? Rule 5D. This was important to Barbara, that we identified the exact time we would be changing from when you can go ahead and put an agenda item on, and this would be identified noon on Thursday prior to the meeting date as the time.
Quick question.
Yep.
I'm only because I'm seeing in the previous change we just discussed in Rule 5A,
Yes.
going from city clerk to clerk of the council, and then now looking at Rule 5D. Should we be consistent with how we're capitalizing clerk of the council? And does it matter whether we want to have it be capitalized or if we want it to be lowercase?
Do
But I
have
think
a
we should be
preference? Do we have a
consistent.
preference here, folks? I'm not aware of any grammatical.
It is a title.
Is it a type? Well, yeah, because I guess if it's, I would just say my preference would be just to be consistent with whatever we choose.
Consistent either way, yeah.
Yeah,
I would capitalize this.
right. So then that means we'll have the
Go back and capitalize.
5A be capitalized.
Any problems with the date of submission, the time of submission? This leaves Barbara, the clerk, a chance to be able to process the agenda, given the current work week, and that would leave the afternoon to finalize the agenda. In 5G, near communications defined, there are several pronoun changes. You can see them on the document. Well, any questions about that?
No.
Next section is referral to committee, and in the section, notification of public hearing will be posted on the city council agenda and on the official city website. It used to say on the municipal building bulletin board, unless any councilor requests publication in the newspaper. We still have newspapers?
Well, so-
We do.
We do. And with my conversation on Monday, if I remember correctly, Barbara said that there were still public hearings that had to be published in the
Yes,
newspaper.
yes.
So I'm curious if this change encapsulates that or not, or if it matters. But my understanding from my conversation with her was that there was still a requirement to publish in the newspaper, so I feel like maybe,
It is the clerk's responsibility to file any publications to meet all legal requirements, independent of what we have as a rule. I think we're here concerned that is the official city website enough publication? Or should we insist that there's a municipal bulletin? In the old days, when you went into the building, there was a bulletin board and you saw what the publications were. Nowadays, the website seems to give notice to folks. Your question is, should there be discussion of a public hearing in here? I don't feel a need to repeat the law. If the law requires us to publish in a publication, we're going to do that.
I mean, I can definitely see the argument that it's the clerk's, it's more pertaining to the clerk's duties versus the council.
Job to get that out.
Okay.
So I presume, that's what the clerk has to do. Here, we would say, well, we have a rule that you also have to post it on the, or we have a rule that says, well, not only is if it's a legal requirement, but if a counselor requests it, you're gonna do it. That would be a point I wanted to be sure we all understood. Sometimes we have hearings or discussions that aren't legal public hearings. I mean, legal, anything that's required to be posted or published in a newspaper. I can't think of a quick example, but where we've met and wanted to be sure that the public was fully informed on a specific topic, even though there wasn't a legal requirement. But that's something the council could do anyways. Councilor Jennings?
I'm just kind of thinking about this kind of in the moment, and so as I'm reading this, I'm aware that there are individuals who don't have computers, and so you may still want to post it on the bulletin board, just because not everyone has access to that. So I'm just throwing that out there. You all can decide. I'm just thinking about that kind of as we're talking about this.
I'm glad you're thinking about it as we talk about it, because that's a good point. Should something be still published, or certainly public hearings, I think, particularly. And the thought is that someday we're going to have a moving electronic message board out in front of the building, and that will presumably be the place where we would post notices to the public on items. But in the meantime, what about the folks who may not have access to a computer? Boy.
I think it's a really fair point. I would be open to keeping in the municipal building bulletin board section. I also have another thought in the moment, just to add into the mix.
That's why we're here.
We're all about moments.
So the other thing that it's not covered in this section specifically, but I'm assuming the presumption is we're posting these in English, knowing that we do have a more diverse population with different languages being spoken, where English may not be the first language of everyone. Would we want to perhaps also think about Spanish, for example, posting in English and Spanish? I will also admit that I actually don't know the exact demographic breakdowns right now, but I do know that, for example, in my precinct, there are a fair number of Spanish speakers who don't have English as their first language or don't speak English at all. So,
Fair point. There are programs that translate quickly all documents, and I know the schools do a lot of translations when they send messages home to parents. That would be worth noting. I like the idea, but how many languages, which languages, becomes the question.
it would definitely
And I think
require.
Spanish would be the one that would be the most prevalent language that for non-English speaking people. But
It could be something that, for example, I'm happy to do a little bit more research and see what languages are predominantly represented within the city. And maybe that's something just to keep in mind for a future change, so that we can still make this particular change right now, but it is
we could make the
something.
change at any time in the future.
Yeah. Mhm.
Certainly, I think everyone here would be amenable to the posting of the municipal bulletin board. Is that a fair statement?
I just wanted to also acknowledge there's a lot of, I think the most prevalent, which should probably be posted, but then I also know that there's just a number of apps and things like that where you can so maybe providing that information so that people can download it in some way or get it somehow and then put it in some sort of app that actually translates it. But if we were to kind of make that public or, whatever.
That may solve the problem of translating every document we sell.
And
For those, but what about
I was gonna say, it's a rabbit hole because, and to your point, I think with technology access from earlier, not everyone may have access to a phone or device that has the ability to grab
If
the
you don't have a
apps.
computer, you might not have a smartphone, and
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you might post the most prevalent, but then if
Yeah.
there's one that.
Right. Shall we move forward with more data, be able to bring this up later with more data?
I would say I'm happy to do a little bit more research and I'll bring it up in the future.
Or do you feel comfortable enough that Spanish would be the next? Or do you think that for posting on the bulletin board? Councilor Terrell?
I think we should, co-telling Counselor Denham's point, I think we should still leave that in posting that, people who don't have computer access, but I think we should probably save the alternate language maybe for another meeting once Counselor Jasdik has looked into it a little further. Because we can change this, like you said, at any time, correct?
This can be changed at any time.
So we don't necessarily have.
It's the easiest thing to change.
Never again.
All right.
Okay, so then,
Municipal bulletin board in the,
so then if we can propose the language to say, be posted on city council agenda, comma, on the official city website, comma, and on the municipal building bulletin board, period.
bulletin board, period. So if I got the change, it reads posted on the city council agenda, comma, on the official city website, comma, and on the municipal building bulletin board. Good. On the next page, with 6G, we dropped another sub on the committees. Those are the rest of the changes I had here. I would be willing at this point to entertain any thoughts for discussion on any of the items. We did have one that I'm happy to bring up regarding minutes. Minutes, what rules are? I'll take any help from the floor.
May I make a comment while you're listening?
Sure.
So I just got this today from Representative Gomez, who used to sit on this committee, and we had talked about parliamentary procedures in some of these, and because I just got this, I haven't had a chance to go back and look at them, so this is just something else for the committee to be aware of, that there were a couple of items in the rules that were a little bit confusing based on parliamentary procedures that I had initially identified, but I just haven't had a chance to go back and look before that. So I just want to make note of why you have it.
So, thank you. Councilor Denham and I had a discussion regarding minutes, and we wondered if we thought it might be helpful to, she was kind enough to pull it together. Give a format to councilors so that they would make it easier to do the minutes. In understanding, really, the law requires that we note any agenda item, any votes that are taken. Discussion can be rather short or longer, depending on the proclivity of the individual counselor doing the drafting and the committee, what the committee desires to have in their minutes. But It doesn't have to be a verbatim transaction, understanding. It doesn't have to be a summarization could be there, or could be as quick as, geez, we talked about having meeting minutes, and a proposal was made. If there's a change, if there's a vote or a change, then that would be included. This isn't something we would have to put in today, but I don't know if anybody had any thoughts on the subject.
I have a similar template that was given to me from Councilor Riley just a short time ago. It's very similar to this.
And it kind of makes it a little simpler, and it might be helpful to have it in the rules and say, well, that would help people to understand what the expectations were. In the old days, before all the electronic recording of meetings, minutes were the way that folks found out how what was discussed and how, so it was more important, I think, at that time to give a longer description. Nowadays, some people rely on it. It's important to have. It is the law. It may help guide people to where in the meeting, if they didn't want to watch the whole meeting, a topic would come up. So, geez, I think this is the third item. Maybe if I go halfway through, I'll find out, that's where I'll find the discussion on this particular topic. And that can be helpful to the public who wants to look up, but doesn't want to sit through an hour or 2 or 3 of meeting to find out what was said when. Councilor Dennis.
Yeah, so again, we had that conversation. It's under Rule 11L. And so I think the idea is that if everybody does their minutes differently, and so if we could have kind of a succinct format, then people can kind of follow that. And I think the Chair Kwasinski's point, these are videotaped now, and so you don't have to put in lengthy kind of verbatim who said what and when and da-da-da-da and what was it, right? You can just kind of give the summary of what was discussed and maybe a couple of key points and then the decision that was made, right? Whether it was a vote or a motion and a vote. But the idea was that we have a kind of a succinct format. And this was just one template that is actually, I got from the MGL as a option. I know that Councilor Terrell said that he has another format, so I think it's for you all to kind of think through what would be the most user-friendly / community-friendly reading of the minutes, right? So this is just a template. It's not attached. I'm not attached.
No, not attached. I'm not attached to it. It's just something that I think would be helpful for people to know, geez, what's expected of them.
Right.
Without,
Well, so coming from 2 other city committees to this position, there is a minutes template that is provided to city committees, at least the ones that I've been on, that is an official city minutes template. It includes a more robust heading with location, who's the clerk or who's the point of contact on record. So that's another option as well. It might behoove us to gather as many formats as we can or that are available.
Right.
And then maybe we can compare them and see. I like the idea of having a consistent proposed template for use. And I just wanted to mention that there are other templates that the city is also providing as well. And so I'm actually surprised that City Council doesn't have
its own
those
form
own templates
template
already for their own subcommittees, or for their committees rather.
Very good. Do we want to continue that matter and look at that at another time?
Sure, I can gather the one I have.
I can send you
Sure.
what I have.
For
If
comparison.
you'd like to send it to all the members of the committee as information, that would be helpful. Again, on those emails where you do send it, make a note for information only, not for discussion, just as to keep in a habit of. Those were the discussion, the items I had. Is there something else that anyone would like to talk about? in terms of revision to the rules.
Yes. I did have a minor proposed edit for Rule 11.
Look at Rule 11. Yep.
So Rule 11, which is council committees, I would like to just propose some addition of some commas, or one comma rather, 2 commas, excuse me, just to make it clear what the committees are. So the first comma I'd like to propose is after public safety
Public safety, you
in
want a
line
comma
2,
there?
comma, so it's not public safety rules and government relations. And then the second comma I'd like to propose would come after ordinance, because I believe that ordinance is separate from property.
And property, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep, that works too. Good catch.
Great catch.
Other- Oh, yes, okay, so Rule 11H.
11H.
First bullet point, I'd like to delete the redundant dash between and recommend.
Review and / recommend confirmation or rejection. So the redundancy would be the dash.
There's another meeting, I'm gonna peek my
Oh,
head in.
because we're gonna get to the charter amendment before too long.
Oh, I forgot about the charter amendment.
I knew you were interested in that.
I forgot about that, I thought we were just talking about rules.
Oh, so I agree with removing the dash. Are you on board? Counselor Terrell?
Sure.
11H.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is not a change, but I just wanted to bring this up for future discussion for Rule 10A, which is the email requirement, which this is referencing the second part of that, which is recommending that all email correspondence, regardless of subject, be copied to the city clerk. Per the city clerk, she does not want all correspondence copied to her, and it's my belief that that doesn't happen in practice anyway. So something for us to think about in the future would be that if it's regular correspondence, just back and forth, things that don't need to necessarily have the city clerk or clerk of the council be on, she doesn't care about that. But if it's more agendas or items of note, so I do think I don't have any wording, but just something I wanted to bring to the committee, given,
Yeah, well, it
again,
doesn't seem to me that there should be a requirement that requires us to email the clerk.
I don't believe it's currently.
We don't email the clerk as a regular routine. I think that's misleading to the public.
Yeah, it's more, because it is written as a recommendation, not a requirement.
It is recommended that.
But I think the words just to think
then
about would be
you're right,
regardless
you're right.
of subject, that would be the piece to think about, so.
Well, we're certainly required to use the email on easthamptonma.gov. It's recommended that all email, boy, that's a good point. The clerk does not want to.
She does not want it.
every email.
So I don't have any language
At least
that
not
I'm
to that
proposing,
address.
but something for us to think about.
And everything is archived in the system. Computers keep records. So that's, I would think we can think about that. Did we want to proceed with recommending the changes that we received to date to the full council? Or do we want to hold the document until we can have inserted further minutes, meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion if you'd like.
Make a motion either way.
I'd like to make a motion to refer all the current edits to full city council.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the referring all the current edits to the city council? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? No extensions? Motion passes. Next item. We have the proposed charter amendment, which was brought up because there could be, conceived to be some confusion on whether or not as to when the council votes on a potential increase in the salary for the mayor. This charter amendment would go from us to the full council, be voted on. The mayor would have to agree to it, and then we would move that on to the state legislature. Generally, you don't move too many things at one, you can move as many as you'd like, but it's nice to package them so that oftentimes you'll see charter review or charter discussion. Here, this is an important matter. I think that we get on the table at the legislature once we identify the language we want to use, because we have used the rule, or rather the charter, was written with a 2-year term in mind. Going from a 2-year term to a 4-year term changes how we vote. The current charter language, which I'll read for the public. Do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't have the rules.
I have just pages of new versions because I think we do need to change something here. Well, let's go over the new versions. The way was proposed by Councilor Denham was that the compensation, the city council shall by ordinance establish an annual salary for the mayor. No ordinance increasing the salary of the mayor shall be effective unless it shall have been adopted in the first 12 months of the term for which councilors are elected on the 3rd year of the mayor's term. And it provides that such salaries become effective in January of the year following the regular election in which the mayor is elected. Following the, did you have regular election? No, I think I added
No,
that
you
word.
might have
I
added
added that
or-
word because I think it's important. If you think about this, there could be an election somewhere in the middle of the 4-year term. The mayor could resign.
Special election. Right?
Could be a special election, and we don't want to be able to raise the salaries midstream of the 4-year period, because that would raise potential conflicts and issues of raising salaries in between. So I wrote in the change to regular election. The tricky thing here is we could go to say that this take place in the first 36 months, because it really doesn't matter. When it gets done, it can be redone. Or do we want to define the change to the 12 months of the 3rd year of the term, of the mayor's regular term?
That's what you proposed, right? 12. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
said
kind of what
12
it is,
months of the 3rd year.
which would have just expired a month ago, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, which keeps in line with that.
I like that better than the first 36 months.
Yeah.
I do. I like that a lot more personally.
because first 36,
Oh, please do.
first 36 months means that I could do it in our 2nd term, I could do it in the 1st term, I could.
Right. There's too much.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I think that this alleviates.
And it gives the
that
parameters.
Councilors are elected on the 3rd year of the mayor's term. Of the mayoral term,
Third year of the mayoral term.
as opposed to the mayor's term, because it could be any mayor, it could be one mayor, two mayors, three mayors. You don't know.
Mayoral
The
term.
mayoral term. Does that sound like that defines it? What I'm trying to avoid is the circumstance that I think we now have, and it's not, it's not great. I could explain that later.
Question for part of that sentence though, should it be, is it elected on or elected in? Should it read, no ordinance increasing blah 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 shall have been adopted in the first 12 months of the term for which councils are elected on the third year or elected in the third year?
To my ear, in sounds more appropriate.
Should be decided upon in the third year of the mayoral term, right, yeah. Because it could be any time within that calendar year.
Yeah.
Yes, could be any time.
And I'm assuming that Councilor Denham doesn't have any objection to that as far as meaning.
I just bring it forward, you all have the.
We all
you make
have the
decision.
wordsmithing in.
Yeah. I have full faith in.
The year following the regular election to which the mayor is elected. I still would like, well, are there any other changes to this document, or do we feel comfortable with this?
May I ask a question?
You may.
Would it be the third year of the 4-year mayoral term?
Third year of the 4-year mayoral term.
Do we have to get that specific if it says
Well, I don't know.
third
Let's
year
say-
of the mayoral term? Third year of the mayoral term. The mayoral term is gonna be the mayoral term regardless of who mayor is, even if somebody else takes over as mayor because of something happening.
Well, I guess the question is, does that actually mean that though? Because the mayoral term could mean, if, like, let's say someone takes over, then they have a new mayoral term.
Oh, okay.
That might not even be 3 years, because maybe they're only
Maybe.
running, or they're only.
So maybe we do need to be more specific as the third year of the 4-year term.
Yeah, because I could
You're
come
right.
in that year.
Yeah, that's a good example. I
Yeah.
never thought of that, yeah.
And then 3 years later, we're in the middle of the term.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
That was a good.
Elected in the third year of the 4-year mayoral term.
And you want that to say 4-year regular mayoral term, correct?
Mhm.
I think regular is.
4-year regular mayoral term. The council shall, by ordinance, establish an annual salary for the mayor. No ordinance increasing the salary of the mayor shall be effective unless it shall have been adopted in the first 12 months of the term for which councilors are elected in the third year of the mayoral, of the 4-year regular mayoral term.
Yep.
And it provides that such salaries become effective in January of the year following the regular election in which the mayor is elected.
Well, given that we're talking about possible one-offs, does that last section, do we want to change that last piece? Because let's say, continuing this line of thought, that someone, the mayor, has something happen, drops out, whatever, someone comes in February.
There's still gonna be
To
an
finish
election in
out a year.
November, though. There'll still be, that November election will still be a November election regardless of if somebody took over a year and 2 years in, third, you know,
Got it, okay.
Even if there was a special election in between.
there would still be another
There would still be
election.
another
And
election.
that's our, right, because that doesn't budge, that's how that
Yeah.
verbiage works.
Do we need to be clear to make sure it's, again, using that regular language as opposed to special election?
I think we do, because
'Cause I
Someone will
think
read it differently.
perhaps it should say something like, effective in January of the year following the regular election in which the mayor is elected.
I thought that's what we said.
Yeah, I think he has regular in there.
The
Did
year
you-
following the regular election. I put that in.
Okay, got it.
I added that language. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
In my
Sorry.
notes. If anyone would like to take a look at these notes, I think that's what we're talking about so far. You pass that around.
Oh, I'm good with this.
The other twist that I'm not sure anybody's put up, but do we want to have a part in here about reducing the salary? Because right now, there's no discussion about.
I don't know if that's ever been done in the history, has that ever been done anywhere, ever?
Yeah, it has. Pittsfield has it, I believe.
Doesn't the word establish encompass possible reductions? Because it's not saying
You establish the
increase.
salary by ordinance, and ordinance can be changed.
You're proposing that this would cover if they wanted to reduce the salary when when the council is going through after January of the following year, as we just talked about. So I think establish covers
Both increase or
decrease.
decrease. Because it's not specifically said increase, it's,
And-
yeah, you're, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I would propose that we leave it that way to,
Here's the rub. Let's say you go ahead and you establish the salary as defined, and the salary is gonna be X. Nothing in here prevents you from writing another ordinance establishing a different salary. Lowering the amount. By law, by charter, you'd have to establish the existing.
would we want to instead, in the second line, add in, so it would say, no ordinance increasing or decreasing the salary of the mayor shall be effective unless blah, 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 blah.
That's what I was suggesting.
Okay, yeah, I
No
didn't
ordinance
realize that was,
increasing
yeah.
Or decreasing the salary of the mayor.
So just adding that word, okay.
Oh, I think that's great. I just want to be clear that somewhere else in the ordinances or the charter, there's nothing that says, because for council, we look at elected official salaries in the first term of our term, or in the first year of our
The
term.
first year of our term for the subsequent,
Right, so I just want to make sure.
post another election.
Yeah, so technically, that's still the first year of the mayor's term. I just want to be clear that this doesn't give us the opportunity to review the elected officials' salaries somewhere else in the charter.
This only has to do with the mayor's salary.
Yep, okay, so I just want to make sure
That's
that,
it. The other- whatever else we have stays in place.
okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that there's no hiccup.
Yeah, it doesn't affect, anything else.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear of like, finances meeting, it's our first term, we're looking at elected official salaries. Oh, am I gonna look at this salary now, even though it's not gonna change until after the next election? You understand my question?
The way that, if you're talking about the mayor's salary.
Yeah,
This proposed charter amendment would only enable us to consider, a council, to consider a new salary in the third year
okay,
of the 4-year term.
okay, great. I just want to make sure there's no other
We
MGL
wouldn't be
or,
able to,
That's my reading of it.
you know, what's interesting, and I think we have to get further clarification from an attorney on, is that you bring up MGL. What's the relationship between other laws and our charter? Our charter goes through the legislature and is approved. Does it take precedence over other laws similar on the books,
Right.
which one takes that becomes a legal question. I think we could all use some further clarification.
Yep, I just want to make sure that we're not suddenly now,
We're not, it's fine. We've lived for, how long, since 1996 with, without having to, but that would give the council certain powers that may not be appropriate. Increasing or reducing this. So with that being said, if everyone's comfortable with this language, I can pass it along to the city attorney for their vetting. I think that would be the next appropriate step. And they may come up with something else, but it definitely is something that you want to do by the city attorney. That being said, is there any other thoughts on this subject? I would again entertain a motion to adjourn, please. Thank you for staying.
yeah. I totally forgot about this.
Yeah.
Adjourn?
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're hereby adjourned.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.